In a small poll of our class, I discovered that 93% of our fellow students believe that the environment, as well as its well-being, is extremely important to protect. The other 7% expressed that the environment's well-being was at least very important, but perhaps not the most important thing. Either way, we all agree that the environment is important, and it should be taken into consideration when we move forward in the future, especially surrounding issues like its resources and how we use its resources for energy. This brings us to a fairly unknown means of energy production called fracking. It is important to understand fracking because we should be aware of how we get our energy, and if we favor a more environmentally conscious way, since we do care about our environment, we should be looking into how these energy sources affect our environment. I have studied many sources of energy, all varying in levels of renewability and environmental consciousness, and I have formed a valid argument on fracking based on this research. This argument is that although fracking has positive aspects, especially when relating to economics, it should not be considered as a safe, reliable means of energy, especially when considering the environment. Okay, before we unload this argument, we need to understand what fracking is to fully get it. In my survey, a fair number of our classmates expressed that they had no idea what fracking was, which is fine. We can clear that up right now. In a BBC article called "What is Fracking and Why is it Controversial?" it describes fracking as the process of drilling down into the earth before a high-pressure water mixture is directed at the rock to release gas inside. This is a watered-down version of the process, pun intended, but it is basically uses treated water with chemicals to release natural gases and oil from hard-to-reach places in the earth. Now, where does this process take place? In an article by Life Science called Facts About Fracking states that the areas where fracking is most profitable is the Great Plains from Canada south to Texas, the Great Lake region, and a region that reaches from New York into Ohio and south to Virginia. Of course, fossil fuels can only be harvested in certain locations, and these places in which fracking can be done is important to understand so we have like a baseline of what's going on and which states are considered for fracking. So why is fracking on the rise in our country, and what does that mean for energy? Fracking is extremely efficient in terms of the process and the amount of energy that it produces from these hard-to-reach places in the earth that normal drilling means for coal cannot simply do. In an article called "The Economic Benefits of Fracking" by Brookings, it reveals that the U.S. fracking revolution caused the natural gas prices to drop by 47% after 2003. Now, for a society that is dependent on oil and natural gases, fought wars over this stuff, this is the biggest advantage of fracking. It allows us to be self-reliant as a nation, use our own resources to produce our own energy, and determine the prices of that energy to be more affordable. And in terms of how it affects the environment, it is much better than coal. The Natural Resources Defense Council, the NRDC, described in an article called Fracking 101 that the gases from fracking does not produce the amount of CO2 pollution that burning coal does. This implies that rather than transitioning from coal-dependent society right to a solar or nuclear or wind society because of our damage to the environment through energy, that doesn't have to happen drastically to protect or lessen our output into the environment in the form of pollution or in climate change. It implies that this is much better than coal. I mean, this does sound amazing, right? But there are always costs to our actions, and every decision we have will always have a bad side. Fracking has its own problems, like most things do, and me personally, it frankly outweighs the economic gains. Popular Mechanics released an article called The Fracking Controversy, in which it states that although it is cleaner than burning coal, The methane that escapes during the drilling process, and later as fuel is shipped by a pipeline, is a significant greenhouse gas that leaks into our environment as well as we use when we burn it. So really, no matter how we change the medium, whether it's drilling for coal or drilling for gases trapped in hard-to-reach places, fossil fuel always produces waste that will affect the environment negatively. And now, if you're not very much of an environmentally conscious person, which may be the case, the Yale Climate Connection expressed that in an article, The Pros and Cons of Fracking, stated that more than 15 million Americans have fracking operations within a mile of their home. Now, this may not seem like a problem, but they later described that the risk of water contamination from the chemically infused liquid used in fracking is a real threat. So this is not just a problem for our environment. This can probably cause many safety issues for people as well. It puts us at unnecessarily risk, and this could happen in your town this could happen in your town if you live near a fracking operation, which you may, considering that this takes place in Ohio. The debate over fracking still rages on, but it is time for you to decide for yourself what is right. Although fracking has many economic benefits, and it is better than coal, it still works against the environment and our own safety for a quick buck. If you're still unconvinced, I leave you with this quote from the American Rivers Organization from an article called Fracking Oil and Gas Development, expressing that the U.S. is not the Saudi Arabia of natural gases. All fossil fuels are non-renewable. Even if this has great economic benefits, it is fleeting. It will always be fleeting. We do not have the resources or the gold mine of oil or fossil fuels that Saudi Arabia perhaps has. So, moving forward into the future, we need to consider something that is more reliable, which fracking clearly is not. Thank you.